Live, what will be or what is a special edition of Sunspot Live. I'm Scott Brooks, your host, and I'm very happy and pleased to spend the next hour and a half with Brandon Beavers. Many of you know Brandon, or at least the name Brandon. For those of you that don't, Brandon is the husband of Missy Beavers, who was murdered what is going on nearly 8 years ago here in Waxahachie slash Midlothian, probably 10 minutes from here at that. And Brandon has been through a lot. And as I mentioned to those of you that have reached out, I wanted to provide a forum for Brandon to be able to tell his story. So just a couple of ground rules I want to share with you today as we get started. First, this will be most likely a multi-part series. Could be as many as 3 because this has been a long time coming, and there's no interest on our part, Brandon's part, to cut things short or to be in a hurry to get it over with. So we will also today, probably about 45 minutes in, halfway in, we will take a break, let us recharge and come right back. We know there will be lots of questions and comments, and we will be watching those. But what I want to tell you is that today is for Brandon to be able to tell his story. Most of you, I think it's fair to say all of you, including me, have not heard Brandon's story. I've heard bits and pieces of it because I've been involved in this from the get-go, but Brandon's story is Brandon's story, and we've not heard that. So we want to allow questions to be formulated and asked once Brandon is able to share his story. So Brandon and I are going to talk. We'll keep our moderators and I will keep eyes on questions, and I'll have natural questions that may answer your questions. So let me introduce to you Brandon Beavers. Thank you for being here. No as I just said, this is your hour and a half, at least for today. And I really genuinely, from my heart, appreciate you being here. I know you've been through hell and back, and I'm grateful for you to be here. So what I'd like to do is go back to the weekend of what was April 16th and 17th, leading into April the 18th of 2016, almost 8 years ago, and let you begin there and just tell us whatever it is you want to tell us, and then we'll throw in questions and go from there.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah, I could run away with this pretty quick, so
I got you. I'll keep you on track.
Keep me on task here.
Okay.
18th, 17th, 16th. All right.
So 16th would have been that Saturday.
April 15th. April 15th was a Friday,
yep.
And I was scheduled for a surgery after some lengthy health issues, and I was scheduled to go in that morning. And at the same time, Missy was scheduled to go to Austin. Mm-hmm. I think it was that morning. It might have been Friday or Thursday night, but I can't remember. Anyway, I suspect it was that morning because Missy called and left a voicemail on my phone. Mm-hmm. And I still have that voicemail today. Oh. Hey, honey, I'm headed to Austin, blah, blah, blah. So had the surgery, went home, recouped. And I had been dealing with some health issues since November of that previous year. So you're talking 4, 5, 6, almost 6 months worth of health issues. Mm-hmm. Long-term type recuperation, and anytime you've ever dealt with any kind of long-term health problems, it really weighs on you mentally. Right. And I had for the previous 4 years, had been on a fishing trip down to Chandeleur Islands.
At that same time every year?
Either April or May.
Right.
And I'm not in control of how the date falls, but that particular trip fell on arrival of April the 17th. So April the Saturday, the next Saturday, I'm at home, and I was supposed to depart on Sunday to Gulfport, and Missy came home early. Missy came home Saturday night really late. It might have been in the wee hours of Sunday morning. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But she came home early because of the rain that they had in Austin. They couldn't really complete a lot of the things that they wanted to do.
Was that a Camp Gladiator trip she was on?
Camp Gladiator,
Okay.
yeah. And I think it was an annual thing, so it was really kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to leave the house at noon on Sunday, and ordinarily we would drive that trip. It's about an 8.5-hour drive, but the surgeries and things that I'd had prior to that, I didn't think I could sit in a car that long. So I had already made flight arrangements for our fuel supplier. Our fuel supplier is the one that took me every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already made arrangements for us to just fly there and fly back.
Right.
So me and Missy Sunday morning just kind of laid there in bed talking, hey, what'd you do this weekend? How was it? And all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it came time to leave, and drove to DFW, and the storms were just crazy.
Yeah.
All to the east of us, all on our flight path.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat on the tarmac for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself that I've made a bad decision here.
Yeah.
We sat there long enough that we had to turn back around and get refueled. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, we finally made it to Gulfport. The storms that were in our flight path were the same storms that kind of rolled through that area, and they were a large storm. It wasn't just a small area swath. It was like the Gulf of Mexico, southern Louisiana, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the Chandelier Islands, they're about 40 miles off the coast of Biloxi, or 30 miles off the coast of the most southern tip of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. And
it's in water that averages, 4 to 6 foot deep, maybe 8 foot at the most. It's not deep. Mm-hmm. And the ship that we ride in, it carries 15 people, 12 passengers and 3 crew, mm-hmm. six boats on top. So it's not a small vessel. And when we got there, we usually leave out that Sunday night, and we travel all night long because the thing can only go about 2 or 3 knots. It drafts like 4.5 foot of water.
Yeah.
So you can't go out in rough seas or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So the captain said, look, we're going to stay the night here, and we're going to leave out in the morning. And we stayed the night. We unloaded all our fishing gear on the boat, and me and my fuel supplier stayed the night at the deckhand's house. And so, we went to bed. I got my phone rang at about 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And it was one of the campers who me and Missy have known for a long time. And he said, Brandon, you've got to come down here. He said, there's been an accident. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not at home. Mm-hmm. And he said, you need to come here. There's Missy's, something's wrong.
To the church. He was referring to the church. Yeah.
And
let me ask you, the storms that you faced going to Mississippi, did they produce the torrential rains and that sort of thing that Missy faced?
No, evidently. I mean, there were storms. I'm guessing there were storms from, to the east of us from Sunday midday all the way through Monday morning here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't really know that. I didn't know the weather here was that
bad.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite like that. But
yeah.
So he said, you've got to come down here, and I said, I can't. I'm in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And that conversation ended, and then his wife, who we know, said, Brandon, you've got to get someone down here. There's been an accident. And I thought it was a car accident. So I got off the phone with her, and Norma, Missy's mother, was supposed to come and stay the night Sunday night. She would have to drive in from Jacksboro, which is about a 2-hour drive.
Right.
And because of the weather, and I didn't know this, but the weather was so bad here that Norma couldn't make the trip. It's a 2-hour trip, and Norma's, she was, early 70s.
Right.
Driving in Dallas versus driving in Jacksboro all your life
A little
is
bit
two
different.
totally
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
So she couldn't come, and I didn't know that. But I tried to call Norma, couldn't get an answer. I called Clint, Missy's brother, and I woke him up. Actually, let me back up. I got another phone call from the scene from a female Midlothian officer,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that Missy's no longer with us, and I didn't know.
Did it register that she meant like Missy had died or was
Yeah,
killed, or that's
actually,
what registered?
it absolutely registered.
Okay.
I mean, she may not have said those words, but it was in a roundabout, soft way that she's not here.
But so you didn't hear that and think, well, what do you mean she you can't find her and she's out driving around somewhere?
No.
You knew immediately it was.
No,
And did the man that called you the first call you got, was he on the scene calling you from
Oh,
the
yeah.
scene? Yeah.
And I know that person, he has a background in some, light duty medical stuff, and
Yeah. He knew.
he performed CPR.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, so I called Clint after I found out that she was not here, and I asked Clint, I said, "Where's Norma?" And he said that she's here, and I said, "Well, something's happened to Missy, and she's no longer here." And I didn't really know how to put that.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
But so I guess I got a hold of my mom. I don't know. I don't remember. I really don't. But my mom drove straight to the scene. I told the officers, I said, "Be on the lookout for a white Suburban." I said, "That's my mom."
Mm-hmm.
And
And it was still dark, probably. What was it still dark? You think at that time? That
it would have been April, middle of April. I mean, I'm sure the sun was probably starting to come up, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
But so I had another family member that had to come to the house and wake the girls up.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, me and my fuel supplier, we the plane lands in Gulfport. You drive to Biloxi. It's only 15 minutes away. So I was in a panic, and I woke him up. I said, "Hey, something's happened. We got to go." And we drove back to the airport thinking I could just catch a flight, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the quickest way back was to just take the rental car and go.
Mm-hmm.
So we did, and as we were traveling there, my phone starts, going crazy, and most of it's news media and stuff, and you're sitting in a car for 8.5 hours, and I don't want to talk to my kids. I don't want to call them because I don't want to engage them with that.
Yeah.
On a phone.
On a phone. And they were at the time how old?
15, 13, and 7.
Yeah.
Let me think about that. No. 7 or 8. But
yeah,
there's just no way. And we got pulled over in one small town in Louisiana between Shreveport and Lafayette. I can't remember what town it was.
We
were
for
going,
speeding or something.
Yeah, we were going about 100. We were going about 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, right.
And my guy got out of the car and said, "Look, here's what's going on." He said, "Get in the car and go."
Wow.
He just said go. So anyway, we got to my house. He dropped me off, and when I got there was a lot of people there, friends and family. I mean, there was a lot of people.
At your house?
At my house.
Yeah. And that would have been Monday.
No, yeah, Monday.
Yeah, Monday afternoon.
Probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Right.
And I did get to hug my children and cry with them for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there was so much stuff going on around the house, a lot of people. And my first concern was just, their well-being. And
Who told them, Brandon? Was it Norma or your mom?
No, Norma wasn't here.
Okay.
Norma was still in Jacksboro.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was my mom or if it was my aunt.
Yeah.
Or it might have been my uncle. I don't remember.
Right.
But I don't know. That's just my kids have told me about that, and it's just not good. But so when I got back, I was actually kind of relieved at the number of people that were there to help console the kids and things, and I felt a little bit comfortable with everything. It wasn't a complete meltdown like I was anticipating.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the back of my mind, my memory serves me right. My youngest daughter, Sarah, at some point early, when I got there, I saw her jumping on the trampoline with a friend.
Mm. And
so I think she was totally disconnected.
Yeah.
But like I said, on the trip home, the news media and everything had been trying to contact me, and I was really upset because I wasn't at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't remember the timeline here, but either when I got home or shortly thereafter, the media was already there, or shortly thereafter they showed up.
Yeah.
And
this would have been, for those of you watching, this would have been largely the Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the local media, which I was a part of then, we knew we had better sense than to show up on a man's driveway or, front door, back porch, or whatever, ready to hound you. So it was the broadcast media primarily in Dallas and Fort Worth.
All the major news outlets and all the affiliates and stuff that go downstream, yeah. And I just felt obligated to talk to them, and on the ride home, I started getting an idea of how widespread the news was, and I felt obligated to the community to engage the media, and so I did. I was really fearful that they would sensationalize something, and that was my first concern. Was like, guys, hey, come on, let's make sure we keep this at a, but that's just not how that works.
Level. Yeah,
but,
right.
So, while they were sitting there talking to me, it was all preliminary type stuff before they were, they're actually filming stuff, and there's questions and stuff, and I caught wind of one of the questions while I was speaking. Somebody asked a question that I was filtering in my head, and when I heard it, I kind of glimpsed that what they said in a roundabout way involved me in Missy's murder as a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that,
was the police at any member of law enforcement at your house at that time?
No, not at that time.
Okay.
But that was the first hint that, oh God, people are going to think I have something to do with this. And at that moment, man, I didn't know how to react. Didn't know how to handle myself because I'd never imagined, that. So
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
But
I mean, was the question that you filtered as meaning that you were thinking that they thought you were a suspect? Was it that direct?
No.
It was more of a.
It was a loaded type
Yeah.
thing, and I don't really remember what it was, but it clicked about 5 seconds later. I was like, oh crap.
So so on the, it sounds like you probably made it in 6 hours rather than 8 back home.
I don't remember.
Yeah. But was there any point in that drive that you thought, hey, in most of these cases in the country or the world, the natural thing is to look at the husband or spouse or
no, because
boyfriend?
because at that time we didn't know what the circumstances
Okay,
were,
yeah.
and we thought my initial thoughts was, and you can look at it on that very first when they all showed up. I thought it was a burglary.
Mm.
I thought Missy had just walked into a burglary,
Right.
and even the people that called me, the campers that called me, they thought that it was a burglary,
Mm-hmm.
that she had walked in on something,
Mhm.
and so that's what I assumed.
All right. Yeah.
And I didn't,
Got it.
But after that, I don't remember how much time's transpired from that point till law enforcement came by. I don't know if it had to be the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have been the day after that, because my dad, he was in San Diego, my dad and my stepmom, and they would have known about that. They would have known about that obviously early Monday morning, and by the time they made flight arrangements, I'm assuming it would have been Thursday midday or something when they got here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking it was Thursday afternoon we finally met.
Yeah.
I finally met with the law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they never came to my house. They just said, hey, can you come down here?
So at that point, the thought of being a suspect was provoked by the media.
Mhm.
But was there any point? I mean, it took the police a couple of days to get there. After they got there, did it take? When did you feel like, if they ever did, when did you feel like the police were looking at you in a similar fashion? If that ever came,
Well,
whatever happened.
I'm only saying this in hindsight, but I later learned that Midlothian, in those early hours that Monday morning, Midlothian PD reached out to Mansfield, because Mansfield had a more technically inclined crime scene
Mm-hmm.
unit to process the scene.
Right.
So they processed that, and I'm not really sure that they had actually extracted the video yet or not.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think they had.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as they knew, they could have, it could have been a burglary to them.
Right.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Was the first time they knew you were in Mississippi was when they came to your house, or
No.
did they already knew that,
No, they didn't come to my house.
or when you met with them? Sorry.
The very first time I met with them at the station,
Okay.
Was after my dad had already arrived.
Okay.
And I don't really think Midlothian knew, the
Mhm.
MPD knew if it was a burglary or what. I really don't know.
Yeah.
But we showed up there, and I assume they cast pretty early on with a wide net.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we can assume this is a burglary, but let's not assume just that. Let's just assume this is a homicide. Let's do, murder.
Yeah.
So we went in there, my dad and I both. My dad went there kind of in a support role,
Mm-hmm.
and we met in one room, and they started asking some questions, that were pointed. Hey, where have you been? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they left the room, and my dad said, hey, you think we ought to get a lawyer? And I said, no. I said, if there's anything that I can contribute to this, to find out what happened, who's responsible, I said, I'm not going to run from it. I'm going to divulge any and everything that I possibly can think of,
Mm-hmm.
to try to assist them
Right.
in finding something as quickly as possible.
Was the MPD or Mansfield, or I don't. Was it just the MPD that met with you, or was it Mansfield as well?
No, Mansfield just processed the
Okay.
scene, and then they left. They took all of the information and did whatever they do with that.
Were they respectful to you and professional at that very first, that when your dad said in that setting, when he had told you maybe?
Well, they had left the room when he had said that.
Prior to that, when they were there, were they good to you? I mean, when they were,
They were fine.
Okay.
I didn't sense any. I didn't sense anything like that. They were
Okay.
just trying to gather information.
Right.
And so from that point on, I felt like my duty was to try and think of anything, people, circumstances that I may have, circumstances like, Missy, she was pretty aggressive with her workout stuff.
Right.
I didn't know, maybe she had stepped on some toes. So anyway, I knew a lot of people in that area. I knew a lot of people over here in this area. Certain other circumstances, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. That's why I wanted to be there.
Right.
And I think for me to just lock up and lawyer up, I think that was stupid. I didn't feel that vulnerable. And I had experienced quite a bit more than just that to lawyer up. I'll guarantee you that. And I just never thought it was necessary.
Yeah. So let me ask you about your dad. Did he, in that meeting with the police department that day, because your dad at some point, if I remember correctly, and this may have all been rumor based, I don't know if it ever came from law enforcement, but your dad was by some considered a potential suspect as well. Did that at that setting or any setting afterwards, did the MPD or any law enforcement make you or your dad feel like they were looking at him?
I don't really know.
Yeah.
And you have to remember there's a timeline here over the course of a few days, 3 or 4, maybe 5 days. When they released the video of the person walking in the hallways, I don't know what day that was after the 18th. I don't really remember if it was day 1 or 2 or 3. But I do remember, I hadn't seen the video, but I had started hearing reports that it was a person in tactical gear.
Right.
And so they brought me in, and they sat and showed me the video. And I know why they did it. They wanted to see what my response was. But when I watched the video, it wasn't. My first response was, "That's not really tactical gear. That looks like motorcycle gear or something." And I didn't really have anything to offer other than, what is the person? Can't make sense of what he's wearing or what that person's wearing. And
I'm interested in that. I've known you now for since then, and consider you to be you have to be strong and withstand a lot when a person goes through what you've been through. When you saw that video of the person that at that point you knew, or most likely knew, that that person was responsible for Missy's death, did any other, I don't know what you felt? Were you angry? You remember?
I'll be real honest with you. I wasn't sad yet.
Yeah.
I was mad.
Yeah.
And I was determined. I wanted to. I was sad, but I didn't. I'm just more when something like that. When there's a problem that needs resolution. I put my head down and I put my blinders on, and I keep going. And I was sad, but I was more determined to hurry up. They always say the first 48 hours. Right. So let's go. Come on. Right. No, I didn't really, and honestly, the first few days, I really didn't sense the Midlothian coming down on me. They brought me in there. I'm sure they had their suspicions, but they kind of wanted to get the whole picture here. What's going on? I mean, I can't imagine being in their shoes very early on like that and trying to figure out what happened, how, you know, was she targeted? Was she not? Was she? I mean, you know, all of these unanswered questions, and I was just there to try to get it done as soon as possible.
Let me ask you about your dad. Your dad, you and your dad are close, yes?
Yep.
And how just this is a little off the beaten path, but did that make you? Did this experience make you and your dad closer, more bonded, or I mean,
No,
no, it's
no. I mean,
okay.
I mean, they were in San Diego, and you know, something like this happens, you just drop everything and
Yeah.
get here, and that's what they did.
Right.
And he was here for my support, you know,
Mhm.
emotional support, and I just what people, you know, the whole finger pointing deal at my father. What people don't understand is that when me and my father was on camera, and people make comments that he's kind of got this smirk on his face, and what they don't understand is that several days have passed at this point, and we're down there at the PD, and come to find out, I didn't know anything about this, but we had left there, and I had a very well known local news guy call me on my cell phone,
Mhm.
and I hadn't pulled out of I hadn't got a mile down the road, and he says, "Hey, Brandon, what about this bloody shirt?" And I said, "What in the world are you talking about?"
Your dad's bloody shirt, right?
And
Yeah.
he said, "Well, your dad took a bloody shirt and took it to the dry cleaners." And
Right.
I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about."
Right.
And then as soon as that conversation in my phone rang again, "Hey, Dad, there's helicopters flying around our house,"
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, so I called my dad. He was en route to my sister's house, and I said, "Hey, Dad, what's the story with the bloody shirt?" And he said, "Well, I didn't really want to tell you, you know, with everything going on, but Christy, my sister's dog, who they were staying with, attacked Kilo, the little Chihuahua that belonged to my stepmom, and killed it, and I didn't know that."
Mm-hmm.
He had carried it to the vet, and I mean, the dog didn't make it, and he had the blood on his shirt, and he didn't want to share it with me because he felt it was irrelevant versus what I was going through.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, we got a problem." I said, "Do you understand that, you know, during the course of this whole thing, that a bloody shirt shows up at a dry cleaner?" I said, "Do you not understand where the questions are, you know, surrounding that are going to be coming from?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Turn around." I said, "Let's go back to the police department." I'd already been warned that the news media was going to show up, you know, all about the bloody shirt thing. So, you know, we waited inside for the news media to set up, and we thought it was essential to address that right off the bat. I mean,
Right.
that was something that could have got out of hand pretty quick.
No doubt.
And so there's just no other thing to do other than address it right there.
Yeah.
But so the notion, you know, my dad turning in a bloody shirt right at the onset of a murder investigation, that makes him look culpable.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if he's gonna. You don't box that man into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the reaction that you saw from him was like, pretty much, you know, you guys can kiss my ass.
Yeah.
That was his. That's what was behind that smile.
Mm.
And so anyway, I mean, that was a real cut and dry deal.
Well, just one more thing about that. The only way the media knew about that is that one of the workers at the cleaners had notified the media, correct?
No, they notified the police.
Notified the police.
They had already taken
Okay.
it they had already taken it
Evidence or
in
something.
as evidence,
Yeah.
and we're getting that processed.
And so our viewers know that blood was tested probably more than once, and obviously we know now determined to be animal blood, and so that all checked out. But I recall us being notified of that and we, as we tend to do, said to ourselves, wait a second, let's just chill out a bit. Let's don't go off with that information and see. We got to wait for the test.
Well, that's the difference between you guys and
community.
and the other
Yeah,
guys.
you're right. but I felt, things really started piling on your dad there for, I don't know what window of time it was, but it was pretty intense, as I recall. Yeah, so I remember.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, so we're into. You've had the meeting with the MPD, you and your dad. And that would have been sometime that week, say Wednesday or Thursday.
Something like that.
So what had you already had Missy's funeral at that time? Do you recall? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So when you're done,
Missy's funeral was on the following Saturday.
Okay. All right. So you hadn't had it then. So when you leave the MPD, if you recall, what then? What'd you do? What do you do? You got three really precious girls, and they're now, two of them are young adults and beautiful girls. You gotta take care of them, right?
Well, Norma was there.
Okay. Norma's your mom.
Is Missy's
your
mom.
mom-in-law. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mother-in-law.
and I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Mhm.
Your brain, when you're under a certain amount of duress, your brain just has does some crazy stuff.
Right.
I don't remember I don't remember anything going on at home.
Okay.
But I do know that my girls were taken care of. I may not. I don't think at that point I really felt under the gun with law enforcement yet. That was probably the week after Missy's funeral.
Okay.
I don't know. I just know that there was a lot of people at the house, and it's not like we were alone, and I was forced to contend with any one thing at a given time. I was just in la-la land.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to describe it.
So you get to Missy's funeral, and then after the funeral, it sounds like things started becoming maybe clearer that the police department was still looking at you, despite your trip to Mississippi and all of that. So let's talk about, if you recall, that I don't want to jump anything that you want to tell us. I don't want to leapfrog it, but can you just share a little bit of how that started to transpire and what you did?
You got to remember, these guys are gathering information on all fronts, and generally what happens in these types of situations is they start with the people closest and they work their way out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the closest,
Right.
And the moment that I suspected that I would be high on their list, I mean, I was, I didn't question it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a necessary evil, and at the same time, I had to answer their questions, but at the same time, I wanted to interject things that I thought may help, So it was kind of a win-win, win for them, win for me, because I wanted to just feed them as much, people, contacts, circumstances, everything. I wanted to just ram it down their throat. But, they had to take a look at me, and they did, and that got really, really crazy. I mean, insane.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how long the insanity lasted? Or maybe a better way of saying is, do you recall how long it took for them to take you off the list?
I didn't feel comfortable until about July.
Yeah, so what, 2 or 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, you got to remember they had initiated the search warrants. So then you got to wait for that information. Then you got to decipher the information and comb through it. And then, you still have information just flying in from all angles. So, they had an investigator devoted strictly to me, which, was pretty smart. But Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so
And that goes, you know, I can go further and further into that insanity.
I want you to, I think our viewers, I just want to catch, let me just catch some questions here, see if they, does Brandon feel that true crime followers leaving tips and getting involved is helpful or more of a hindrance to the case? That's from Dad's Bud 11.
Do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah, if you'd like.
Repeat it
Does
again.
Brandon feel that true crime followers, which are these, as we've talked about, these sleuths out there, leaving tips and getting involved is helpful or more of a hindrance to the case?
For the first 12 months, all of the, you know, how do you define a true crime effort that's based on objective thinking and not some irrational methodology? How do you can't filter through that.
Right.
And so early on, I would suspect that they had to take every tip they could, no matter what it was and who it was coming from. And that's why they employed the FBI. They had another piece of software that enabled them to gather this information, categorize it, prioritize it, and things like that. I don't really know how it works, but
yeah.
But you know, in hindsight, all of the true crime stuff that came into play for that stuff came into play for, still kind of does, but for a solid 3 years at least, solid. It was a hindrance.
Yeah, I remember conversations with you where it was clearly a hindrance, a burden.
Did you watch the movie I told you about?
Just got started,
Okay.
and my wife told me about it. The movie Brandon is referring to, it's a documentary series, The Disappearance at Cecil Hotel, something like that. And you all may want to watch it. Brandon has encouraged me to watch it, and so I've gotten started. My wife told me about it, but it's something maybe you all want to watch as well, because it's I think the comparison here is what we're talking about now.
Well, it's the social media true crime community aspect of that in that movie is precisely what happened here. And if you'll notice, it was the San Francisco PD. I mean, they had a field day with these guys. I mean, it was a hindrance. I mean, it's just information overload. And, you know, especially early on in an investigation, you know, it's hard to just roll through all that stuff.
Yeah,
and some of it is far-fetched, man. You got to understand that the cops are wanting to take leads. They want leads. But when you have a percentage of leads that are just
out there,
psychologically in left field, I mean, how are they going to know it's in left field until they investigate it? So you're just wasting their time.
Right.
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't think when they call in the lead, they don't say, "Hey, I'm a true crime guy, and here's my tip."
Yeah.
They just say, "Hey, there's my name, and here's my tip."
Right.
But I don't think the true crime. I would have to say the first couple of months after Missy, I wouldn't call it true crime. I'd call it a large number of very curious individuals. Okay. And certain social media communities formed,
right,
you know, and started growing, and information began to exchange. And then I guess it took off from there. But
yeah, I remember some of those being rather vile and out in left field. Many of the folks watching now are parts of groups of people who are still very interested in this case, largely because it's unsolved, obviously. One person says here, I can't read, I don't know how to scroll that up, Doug, but let's see.
Check Facebook's comments.
Yeah,
You'll go to the line on your desktop.
on my desktop, okay, yep.
And you'll find that Facebook tab once more.
I don't, on the line? give me a minute, folks. I want to make sure I'm catching. Okay, here it is. Yeah. So,
Scroll up inside that box.
yeah. So, there was a question along with that, Brandon, that I wanted to. Let me just see here. This doesn't have to do exactly with what we were just talking about, but Chambers Creek has been
I recognize that name.
I don't know who that is, but he's.
I don't either, but I
he or
recognize the
she
name.
have been very, very kind and very to the point, very seemingly genuinely interested
Mhm.
and very respectful. So thank you to Chambers Creek. It says, hey, Scott and Brandon, after you finish talking, the question, I'll just ask it now, I have for Brandon is, with the 8-year anniversary approaching, do you feel confident that Midlothian Police Department can solve this case?
I think they have. I think they've done everything up to this point that they can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I can elaborate on this for probably 20 minutes.
Feel free to elaborate. I
I
think
mean,
people are interested in. You and I both know this. There are people convinced that MPD botched
Is
this.
incompetent? No.
Okay,
I
so
don't
they're
think
not.
so.
You don't think they're incompetent? No. But you went through this with them essentially.
Absolutely.
Yes, and you can mention if you want to the recent changes that they've had in personnel. But so let me ask you again: do you feel that this was botched from your vantage point?
I'll be real honest with you. You know, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody in law enforcement, but there is a mindset that of ego.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't apply that in a broad way, but it's just kind of a generality that people have towards people in law enforcement, and I don't. But I'm telling you, they reached out to Mansfield PD for the crime scene work.
Right.
They reached out to the FBI, and this is, I mean, we're talking day 1 or 2 here.
Mm-hmm.
They reached out to the FBI. They reached out to other law enforcement entities for help. So it's not like they said, no, we've got this.
Yeah.
Okay. So they were, at least Chief Smith was, he had the forethought to say, hey guys, we're going to have to get some help. And that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And the FBI worked on me as an individual. I can go into detail about that.
Yeah, when you say worked on you, do you mean they were
Interviewed
okay.
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Not very often, but
Right.
they had to employ a different tactic or whatever. You got to remember, everybody says that I'm not emotional, and I told you that I'm just a very matter-of-fact kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole demeanor that people have commented on camera is the very same demeanor I had in the police department, in the police station.
Mm-hmm.
I never cried. I was very matter-of-fact. I was sometimes up in their face, you know. But I don't want to get too far off of where I was started here.
I'll bring us back.
But Midlothian, I was told here a couple of years ago, the Nissan Altima that was in the SWFA parking lot.
Right.
The lengths that they went to try to find that car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to. They managed to round up somewhere close to 100 registered Nissan Altimas in a given radius of Midlothian.
Mm-hmm.
And in the span of not too terribly long, they physically put eyes on about 95% of them. I mean, they actually, they actually drove to these locations where these registered vehicles are supposed to exist or whatever, and they found almost 95% of them.
Right.
So you can't tell me that was done solely by the Midlothian Police Department. It had required a large number of people involved to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I mean, pretty smart.
Right.
I mean, there's some other things that they've done. They've just never really said, we got this, and they're just,
Yeah, I mean, we do see it often depicted on television and other places where you have this rigidity about crossing lines of law enforcement. The police department says, "This is our case. You stay out." We've seen those scenes. I will tell you, from the media standpoint, at least, we're a community media, so we're not looking to sensationalize things and go off accusing people before we know what might be happening or that sort of thing. We found the Midlothian Police Department in those early years after this to be open to us and respectful of us and good lines of communication, that sort of thing. But I will say that somebody just asked a question, does Brandon know why the MPD hasn't given an update to the public? And I want you to answer that, but it's hard to give an update on something you don't have an update on.
Very true.
Yeah. So what in your opinion, I do want you to, if you will, to talk about the change recently, but in those 2 or 3 years after, they had to have something substantive, did they not, to be able to share with your family and the media, the public, before it to be meaningful?
Well, first and foremost, Midlothian Police Department's their duty is to Missy. Okay, it's not to the family. I know that sounds crude, but their duty is solely to Missy. They work for Missy. Okay. Had this happened in Dallas, we would have probably have heard nothing from them on day 3. Okay, but Chief Smith had a little different outlook on that. He wanted, he did see the need to address the family and console the family and involve the family, and he did that.
Yeah.
And that ran its course. And but it just came time. There was a lot of information floating around out there, and it just came time to really lock it down. And that's what they did. They locked it down.
Okay.
In the last couple of years, and that's why you haven't heard anything.
Right.
One of the officers, and some people out there in social media know that some of my daughters tried to reach out to him, and there's a couple of investigators there that exist today that existed when the communication was more lenient, and they were probably instructed, hey, no more communication with the family unless it's Brandon. Whatever they had to say came to me.
Right.
Whatever I needed to discuss or whatever questions I had, they were being bombarded on multiple fronts. Okay. Not only from me. I have in my email every email I ever sent to them, and I guarantee you, in the first 3, maybe 4 years, it's well over 250 emails, and that don't include the times that I visited them. So that's just for me. You have other members of the family bombarding these guys, and so they had to just they can't get their job done if they're being constantly bombarded, and they feel this duty to respond in a respectful way. I mean, they've got to get their job done, and that's what they finally decided to do. Hey, we're shutting this down. We're not going to talk about anything anymore. Too much information has been divulged as it is, and that's fine with me. I know it's upsetting, but all of the communication that we had with them before, it served an emotional purpose, and it did what it needed to do.
Right. Do you or do you know if the MPD, consider this case cold?
No.
I don't know when a case, given law enforcement standards, becomes cold. I don't know if it's a given time frame or if it's given lack of evidence or whatever, or things just. But it's not in your opinion cold.
What I think happens on that is that they make it a point to address things as they come.
Yeah.
And I think that over time, as lack of movement, information, whatever, that things just, it's not something that you're addressing daily. It may be once a week, then it may be once a month, then it may be once every couple of months. That is probably how that kind of works.
Yeah, that makes sense. How often do you communicate with the MPD now? Rarely?
I'll shoot them an email maybe once a month, and there's no response.
Got it. Okay. It's an hour into this. Or do you need a break, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, we're going to keep going. Let me just double check.
Scott, if we could take a 2-minute break to collaborate, comments would be good.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to take we're going to keep things going, but we're going to let our guys come over and look at comments and that sort of thing. Be sure we can ask some things now, but I want to get Brandon back on, back to after the funeral.
Okay.
You are suspect at that point. It starts getting a little bit hot and heavy. You get through that, and then you have a story to tell. And I don't want to preempt it. I don't want to mess with it. I want you to be able to tell it and go from there. So we're going to take a 2-minute break here, folks.
Hang on in here, folks.
Okay, we're back. Connect a device running camo.
Oh, we're having a little camera moment. Unconnect, that's okay, we can just one here.
Okay.
They can still hear you, you can talk to the folks.
Hi, everyone. We are back. We're going to get the camera reconnected here. There we go. So there are a couple of questions. One of the questions was about, do we believe, or does Brandon believe, that the MPD or any law enforcement who that may be continuing to analyze the video is using the best equipment out there to do so?
I do know that in 2016 they did use the best, they did seek out the best technology at the time.
Right.
And Assistant Chief Kevin Johnson has always stated publicly and privately that as we move forward in time, he's retired now, but as we move forward in time, all of the advances in every aspect of technology that can help further an investigation will always be
Used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, there are conventions and gatherings of the sharpest minds in law enforcement with respect to technology and things like that. Those kind of things occur. They are plugged into that.
Right.
So it's not like it's not like there are technologies available that they're not aware of. I mean,
Yeah.
they try to stay on top of that.
Yeah, it would
And-
seem to me, again, knowing the MPD, I'd say the same thing about the Waxahachie Police Department. Whatever it is, in this case, it happens to be a video we're talking about. They're not going to know that there's equipment out there that could help them solve this by analyzing that a bit better and not use it. I wouldn't think.
Well, in this particular case, let's say you have video. In 2016, you have video that you're not able to utilize for any purpose of the investigation, and they say, well, we've tried to. Here's a perfect frame where I think we can identify that person. Here's the frame, but there's no technology to extrapolate that image.
Right.
So all of the people involved in this know that's the frame we need. So in the back of their mind, they're like cruising along in time, and they're, you go to these conventions and things like this, and it's going to dawn on them, hey, this is the technology we need to extrapolate this particular frame of information.
Right.
It's finally here.
Right.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
call the company in. That's how it kind of works with. It works that way with DNA stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So it's not like it's not like there's things going on. These guys are not stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. You have the FBI. The FBI knows, hey, yeah, guys, there is a frame here that we could use some help on or whatever. They know.
Right.
And they're,
Okay.
it's not that,
All right, one more question, and then we're going to get back on track with the story chronologically is what we're trying to do here. This question, let me make sure I see who it's from. Cindy Crowder. What does Brandon think about MPD being less than forthcoming or willing to talk to his older daughter, who spoke on a podcast, that they wouldn't speak to her directly? It seems with her being an adult, they should have brought her in and let her ask questions or speak to her, and so on and so forth. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the CID commander right now, the gentleman came from Arlington. He's the former investigator over the Amber Hagerman case. Midlothian had an approach with handling family. He came in, I believe Chief Smith just said, you handle this the way you think needs to be handled. And that gentleman said, no more communication.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It's frustrating, but, they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, and again, go ahead.
Let me say one more thing.
Yeah.
The last meeting that we had, it wasn't with everyone involved, but it was specifically with him. And it was last July, and it was me, my mom, my three girls. I don't know if all three of them were there. I know the two oldest ones were. Norma, Missy's mom, Missy's two brothers, we were all there. And I was hoping to ring their bell on some questions I had.
Yeah.
And I wasn't allowed to do that. It was more of a, hello, this is who I am. This is my background. We're going to do everything we can. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm over here pounding the table. What about this? What about that? I think this. And he's just like trying to shut me down.
Yeah.
And I'm getting I got
angry.
I got very mad.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But
well, I think that's helpful for you all watching, because there is this belief that someone out there in law enforcement has gone mum on this, and what we just heard is that Brandon hasn't, and I don't know that Brandon ever will, nor will his girls as they get older. But it only takes one person in a police department, who's particularly the person given responsibility for the case, to say, well, I'm not going to talk to you about it anymore. And so we just heard Brandon, the one closest to Missy at the time, is being shut out. And it may be that we need to dig in. Well, it isn't maybe. We need to dig in a little bit more to see what's up there. Just we may get shut out too.
I really, like I said, it really sucks.
Yeah.
But like I said, their job and their duty is to Missy.
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate that we were able to correspond and, compare and contrast ideas or whatever.
Right.
And but I think they just want it to have it to themselves.
Yeah, I get it.
I think it has more to do with I think it has more to do with the flow of information and how that may play out in a courtroom. So they've got to keep that under a tight wrap. So.
Right. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the week after the funeral, in which it gets a little bit more heated in terms of you being, you're a suspect. Is there anything you want to share in that period of time that would help our viewers understand your perspective, what you're going through, what your family's going through? Anything there that you want to discuss?
Well, like I said, I know that they were wanting to get as much information from me as they possibly could, as a suspect, not just as Brandon, but as a suspect. The prodding questions, what were you doing here? Do you know this person? All of those kinds of things. And that went on for a long time.
Was there any, in that period of time, because obviously everyone quickly came to know that you were in Mississippi fishing, or about to start fishing. So was the focus then that you must have something to do with it? If you're a suspect and you're in another state in the ocean.
Of law enforcement?
Yeah.
No, I think once they figured out that I was there
in Mississippi
on a consecutive multi-year basis, that they,
Yeah.
I don't think that was. I mean, what they did was they went and got the cell tower data in Biloxi. Everywhere you go, you leave a digital fingerprint.
Right.
Okay, so they were able to go there, retrieve that information, know that I was there. They talked to all the people that I communicated with physically in that area, and he was here, blah, 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 blah. I mean, and that kind of thing went on with my dad in San Diego.
Right. And
it went on with several other people that I don't necessarily know about, but I know that's one way of figuring out who, to verify you said you were there at this time and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I never really felt there. I can't remember what caused it, but there was something that made me absolutely irate.
With the police?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was ready to whoop somebody's butt, but and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was just the continued, do you believe me? Do you believe me? Why can't you believe me? Would you move in with me? I want you to know who I am, what I'm made out of. Just move in with me and just live with me. I'm not making anything up. I'm not lying. Just stop with the crap.
Did they ever polygraph you?
Yeah.
Yep. And just once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was done with the FBI.
Okay.
And that was pretty comical.
What was it?
Yeah.
Was it? I believe that somebody could tell me that I today, or the police could tell me that I was riding a giraffe down the street, and I said no, I wasn't, because I wasn't. But then they polygraphed me and asked me if I was riding a giraffe down the street, and I'm gonna. All the signs are that they're gonna say, you're lying. You were riding it. I mean, is that the experience you had?
I don't really understand how all that works. I didn't really see any valid scientific measurement thing going on like you think you know about, and those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What it was for me is it was conducted by this lady. She was with the FBI, and she told me what the questions were before the actual deal. And one of the first things she said was, "Do not alter your physiology," and I was like, "Okay, how do you do that? You know, am I going to like stop my heart or you know?"
Yeah.
I didn't really understand what she's talking about, and I didn't grow up watching Matlock and all this other crap.
Yeah.
So, but really, what it boiled down to was that whole polygraph thing. The questions just didn't really mean anything to me. They were just kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did is they used it as a tactic, as a coercion tactic, okay? They used it to try to break me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the second time they tried to break me. But you got to understand that at this point we're in June, okay?
Mm-hmm. No.
So I've had half of April, May, June. You know, I've had almost 2 months of just total hell occurring to me emotionally, psychologically. So I think they were just trying to break me. You know, I'm not emotional. I'm not getting emotional. I'm not reacting quite the way. I'm not giving them what they want to see. So
Yeah.
they're just going to keep pounding me.
Right.
And that's what they did. I'll tell you another thing they did. They brought me in with this guy from the FBI, and sat me down. And I don't remember what they talked about to lead up to this point, but it was at the climax of this gathering that both of them looked at me and said that we have video of Missy being murdered. Do you want to see it?
Really?
Yeah. So I broke down then. I was like,
Did they have that video?
no, they lied to me. They wanted to see what my reaction was going to be, and I did break down. And I said, who in their right mind would ever want to see something like that?
Right.
Why would you lie to me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had to do what they had to do to get me in a place, and
Yeah.
that's okay with me. But
I
it
assume you
sucked.
passed the polygraph.
They're
Did they
never
ever
gonna-
tell you?
They're never going to tell you.
Well, I was watching. I don't know if many of you may have seen American Nightmare. I believe that's what it's called. I don't know if you've seen it, Brandon, but it's about. It's a true story of a boyfriend and girlfriend, I think at the time, who had been accused of something, and they independently told the law enforcement the same thing, that of course we didn't do it. Here's what happened. Oh, she was kidnapped. So it's really a good show, a good documentary. But in that, the police polygraphed them and immediately said, after they were able to take a few minutes supposedly and come back, police said, I'm not talking, they're not saying it the way I'm saying it. They said it in their face with vulgarity and loud.
You know why?
And they were lying.
Well, that's the reason I don't really. That's why I call it just a coercion tactic.
Yeah.
They wanted to break me down, and that was just another tool.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, for those watching, if you haven't seen American Nightmare, it would be worth your time to watch. All right, so
let me add something to that.
Sure.
And the reason, the lady that was conducting that, you know, she's real nice, and here's how this goes. Here's these questions, and towards the end of the questions, she left the room, and when she come back in, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, this lady was trained, okay,
Mhm.
to alter her, emotional state to
Yeah.
come back into the room and then start hammering me. You're lying. They wanted to see me break down, and I just started laughing. I was like, this is comical. I mean, it really was
So
comical.
she did the same thing that I just described in American Nightmare.
Yeah, that's what they want to do. They want to see you break down.
All right. So the other thing I want to mention is that when you either by law enforcement, but certainly by social media, and the people out there, once people learned that you were in Mississippi, it was common for us in the media to see people opine that, well, you had to have something to do with it, that you easily to plan
How
a trip to
convenient that he
Mississippi.
was
Yeah.
out of town.
Yeah.
That's
So one of the things I think many of you may have heard for the very first time is that, and part of what we we're learning back then is that this was and many people do it, men and women have annual trips. And so it became pretty apparent to us that because of that, and I think the police ended up feeling much the same way, that it wasn't this quick trip to Mississippi so that I won't be accused of something or blamed for something.
I think they got that out of the way pretty quick.
Yeah, I figured, yeah. Okay.
But social media did.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. So I'm tempted to ask questions, but I wanted us to get through this in the next 15 minutes to a place where we can pick right back up next Thursday. So we're in the summer, or not in the summer, but we're after you became after you stopped being a suspect. What then started happening? I mean, and I don't know if that would have been in the summer, or
Well,
I guess it had to be.
I would say that after about July is when I didn't feel like they were worried about me anymore.
Okay.
They were still working on other people,
Mm-hmm.
other persons of interest. They were still gathering data. Okay. I was still emailing them like crazy.
Yeah.
Actually, in December of that year, me and Missy had something really weird going on in about 2014, I think, 2015, where somebody was trying to take Missy's identity and open up accounts, and this was all occurring locally. I mean, like locally.
Right here.
And so
Yeah.
I was like, whoever's doing this, how did this happen? I know she was working out at one facility in Cedar Hill for a while, and I suspect somebody might have got that information, but I know that she was recruiting trainees, and I don't know if someone got mad. So anyway, the identity theft thing, got a hold of the Ellis County Sheriff's Department, did a report, and there were some other things awful curious about that. But in December of 2016, it just dawned on me. I found the email that I'd sent to Ellis County Sheriff's Department, and I sent it to the investigator. I said, this has got to be it. There's got to be something here. And he looked at it and he said, this is really, intriguing.
Yeah.
And I really hoped that there was something that could have come from it, but I know that when I submitted the police report a year and a half earlier, that nothing came out of it. So I don't think anything ever did come out of that. So
Yeah. Well, one of the things for you all watching that I learned in preparing for this is Brandon's opinion about what happened with respect to was it targeted or was it not targeted? And I think our viewers would really be interested in your thoughts on that element of this really horrific crime. Was it, in your mind, a targeted killing, or was it just a Missy happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Because we're, almost 8 years out, I don't believe she was targeted. I really don't. I mean, the last meeting that I told you that we had with them last July, there were some things said that allowed me to puzzle piece together in my mind some things. I don't think they have anything to work with, because I question the wrong place, wrong time scenario based on certain information that has come about or had come about, and they were like, we don't want to talk about that. So I really think that if somebody, the way that it all went down on video, I don't really imagine, unless that person was like on drugs or drunk or whatever, I don't think that person was there specifically for that reason. I mean, getting there, they got there, 3:30 or something? it seems to me like if someone really wanted to take her life, they would have done it off camera, in the bushes with a rifle or something like that, where this just out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing.
Right.
And I don't really see that. I just don't really think they have anything. I mean, they have over the years. They're working on something. I know about it. I'm excited. That's happened 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But right now we've had 3 years of silence, and I really think they're back to day number 2.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion? Just jumped into my whatever you want to call my brain. Do you there's been a lot of talk about it being a woman who had a bad leg and all this other stuff. Do you have any?
I really don't have an opinion.
Yeah,
I really don't. Yeah. I mean, we use the word he just in general.
Yeah.
As a generalization, but I don't really know. I don't know.
All right, I think it's 5:54. I think it's a good place for us to take a breath. We are going to pick back up next Thursday, and what I'd like to do, there's more for Brandon to share, because you just heard that 3 years ago is when it started to become pretty quiet, kind of a quiet calm, but there's still 3 years or 4 years up until that point that I think Brandon has some information, I know he does, that he wants to share with us. And some of it I may have heard before, some of this I haven't, so I'm hearing it with you all. And as a member of the media, my obligation is to make sure that Brandon has the time to share in his own way, and that we don't play gotcha, but that we all listen to these answers and these thoughts and these, hearing it from the husband's standpoint, it's really amazing. And so we're going to come back next Thursday. Brandon will just open right back up, kind of like we did today, and Brandon will pick back up, and we'll get through that. And then I suspect that at some point next Thursday we will begin to get into these questions, because Brandon has agreed for those questions that are respectful and authentic, that he's willing to answer them if he can. If it means a third show where we just spend the whole show answering questions, then we'll make that happen as well. So, Brandon, thank you for taking the time to be here.
No
But
problem,
I
no
know
problem.
it's been an incredible 8 years.
We haven't really started talking about the crazy stuff yet.
No, so we'll the crazy stuff's coming, but we to get to it, we had to kind of go through what we've gone through. I also want to share with you that this show is every Tuesday and Thursday at 4:30. On Tuesday next week, I think I'm going to take some time to share with you the angle to which, or from which, I come at this, because it's personal, it's deep, it connects me to this family who I've gotten to know and I've seen go through this, and I'd just like to be able to share with you from a contextual standpoint. So if you want to join me on Tuesday, won't be near this long, or it's not a story so much as it me just want to share with you where my heart is in this. So that's what we'll do next Tuesday at 4:30 if you want to join, but certainly next Thursday at 4:30.
Mission statement giveaway.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, thank you. So we do this show because we believe that society is rapidly losing decency, ethics, character. There's a great quote that I love that says, if you want the secondary greatness of talent, being recognized for your talent, then focus first on your primary greatness of character. And that's what's missing in society. And so I don't know, my guess is that if Brandon were to sit down with and he did, I don't know how many times, but not very many, but sit down with the media, traditional media, and for an interview, that what you just heard Brandon and I share would be edited down to about 3 minutes.
Yep.
And you wouldn't capture any of it. And this is live. There's nothing edited here. It'll be there for you to watch afterwards. But this show exists so that we can share with you information that you haven't had before, or that may help you understand better what it is you're grappling with, particularly in a case like this. So I am deeply appreciative to Brandon for being here, and we want to carry this through so that you all know what we know. All right, giveaway. We like to give things away. I'm going to tell you now that did we agree to do that next Thursday?
Is the tickets, yeah.
Yes, so we're going to give away next Thursday. We're going to give away 2 tickets to the Rangers opening day. I don't know who they play. I need to find that out. But the World Series Rangers, so we're excited about that. So if you join the show or watch, and we'll have you do something. You know, we may have you sing the national anthem in Greek and be eligible to win. Largely what we do is we have people tell us what they liked about the show, or in this case, I could just pick one of the hundreds of comments that are coming through or questions. So we're going to give away 2 tickets to the Rangers next Thursday. So again, thank you, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for being here. One last thing, to get me the questions so that I have them, my email address is scott@waxahachiesun.com. scott@waxahachiesun.com. And you get them to me, and I'll be sure we'll have to, those that are duplicitous, we'll just read it once, but I'll be sure to let Brandon see these, and again, he will answer them as he sees fit. Okay, so thank you for being here. I will see you on Tuesday. See ya. Oops. Covered up my. I don't see my video. Oh, that moved. Okay, so stop streaming. Facebook stop. Everything else.
Twitch is stopped?
Everything's stopped, I think. Oh, Twitch is over there.
Instagram.
Oh, I'm Instagram. All right, so we're done, right? We're off everything?
I'll check with you real quick.
That moved over. It was, remember how it was in the middle?
It was, I'll move it back.
Okay.
That's okay.
What is Twitch?
Twitch is another social media where a lot of live streamers
Go
Go.
ahead.
It's